Remember, when you're carrying concealed under your concealed handgun permit, there are rules and regulations that you have to follow. Those rules and regulations are codified in law under Louisiana Revised Statute 40-1379.3. One of those is, what are your responsibilities when you interact with law enforcement in an official capacity? For most of us, unless we're the victim of a crime, the only time that we're going to interact with law enforcement is as part of a vehicle traffic stop. Well, if you're carrying concealed under your permit, what are your responsibilities in that case? There's three. The first is you're required to notify that officer that you are in fact armed. Two, if that officer desires, you are required to submit to a pat down, and if they choose to take that firearm off of you and secure it for the duration of that traffic stop, that is something that they're also allowed to do. Failure to comply with any of that, first and foremost, could result in the loss of your permit, and depending on the circumstances, could result in criminal charges. Let's talk about notify. What exactly does notify mean? Well, notify is the word that is used legally, and it could mean several different things. What I advise students to do is, at whatever point that officer asks for your driver's license or driver's license registration, proof of insurance, once they ask for documentation, first, you want to notify them verbally that you're armed. And the way you want to do that is not in an excited way, because there's nothing wrong with what you're doing. You want to say, no problem, officer. I just want to let you know I do have a permit for a concealed handgun, and I do have that handgun on me. And then wait, that officer will tell you how he wants you to proceed. Most of the time, it'll be something like, all right, no problem, just please don't reach for it or touch the firearm in any way. Could you go ahead and get those documents, please? Another technique is, depending again on the context of that stop, perhaps you already have your documents in hand as the officer approaches. I would highly advise not trying to do that, because you don't want to be searching and moving around the vehicle, because that officer has no idea what you're doing. Remember, from the back as that officer stops you, grabbing your driver's license, reaching in your glove box, looks exactly the same as stowing contraband or reaching for a weapon. So when those lights and sirens come on and you pull over, relax, roll down your window if weather permits, turn on your interior lights, and just relax with your hands on the steering wheel. That officer will either tell you to get out or he'll approach the vehicle. Remember, while you may have committed a traffic infraction, you haven't done anything wrong. It's natural in our society to get a little nervous when you get pulled over, but just remain calm and follow directions. So another way of notifying can be handing him your actual concealed handgun permit along with your documentation. I would advise doing that and verbally notifying. In case there should ever be some misunderstanding, you've actually notified twice in two separate ways. Keep in mind also, in Louisiana, depending on the jurisdiction, most agencies, when they run your plate to pull you over, it will also automatically run the criminal history of the registered owner. If the driver happens to be the registered owner, then they're going to know a little bit about that driver. One of the pieces of data is it will often give some type of notification of if that person has been issued a concealed handgun permit. All right, it's not like a big red alert box that goes off, but it is noted in there. And some officers, depending on their knowledge of the program and things like that, may or may not notice that. That, however, does not exclude you from notifying. You have a responsibility to notify. If that officer asks you to step out of the vehicle and he decides to disarm you, relax, comply, and follow directions. Again, that is not any indication that you've necessarily done anything wrong. That is simply that officer doing what they feel they need to do in that environment, in the context of that stop, to be safe not only for themselves, but also for you. All right? The fact that there's now at least two guns in that traffic stop, his and yours, is something that's going to obviously in our current society cause some level of alarm. It shouldn't cause them to freak out or anything, because again, possessing a firearm is not only a God-given right, but also a Louisiana and United States constitutionally protected activity. However, a firearm can be dangerous, just like a car can be dangerous. So try as best you can not to get an attitude or not to take that officer doing any of those things as some type of personal affront. I know I've done quite a few traffic stops, and very rarely will I ever ask a person to step out and disarm them as part of a normal traffic infraction stop. I have, because other circumstances of that stop caused me concern. It may have been the physical environment of the location. It might have been dark. There might have been other people in the vehicle. All those things play a role with it. Lastly, keep in mind that everything that I've just said from a what you must do legally standpoint only applies if you have the firearm concealed on your person and it's concealed under your concealed handgun permit. That's where those rules come into effect. That means if you're not carrying on your person concealed and you're open carrying, or it's in your glove box. All of those circumstances do not legally require you to notify the officer. However, I would highly recommend that, number one, if asked, you always be honest, because again, that's going to be one of the things that lead to the normal course of events, which is going to be whether or not you get a ticket. I mean, none of us want to get a ticket, right? So lying to someone typically does not incline them to cut you a break. The other thing is lying about that, and then the officer discovering it is immediately going to raise the question of what else has this person lied about. And that's normal. That's reasonable suspicion. If someone is lying to you about something, that in and of itself is suspicious. Okay? So keep that in mind, and remember that your responsibilities per the law are to notify, to allow a pat down and a securing of the weapon during the traffic stop. If they want to run the serial number on it or any of that, that is all legally allowed. However, they obviously, unless for some other reason that firearm is stolen or you are actually physically arrested and removed, they should not keep that firearm. Okay. Also, sometimes, not too much anymore, you'll hear where an officer will demand some type of receipt for the firearm. That is absolutely not a legal requirement. That firearm at that point is just another piece of property, no different than your cell phone or your shoes or your underwear. But those are some things to consider to make sure that you stay within the law and that you don't unintentionally do anything that might escalate that situation. As always, stay vigilant, stay prepared, y'all stay safe.